I found a small glass vial with clear liquid and a dark solid piece inside that clinks like glass. It's been through freezing winters and stayed intact. The box is marked Eclipse Pioneer Division of Bendix Aviation Corporation. Any idea what this might be? This small glass vial is actually part of a turn and slip indicator, an essential instrument used in aircraft to help pilots monitor their position during flight. The clear liquid inside acts as a damping agent, preventing the indicator from swinging too quickly and allowing for a more stable and accurate reading. The dark object, which you described as clinking like glass, is a key component of the internal mechanism. It shifts in response to changes in the aircraft's motion, helping measure both the rate of turn and whether the plane is slipping sideways during a maneuver. The label referencing the Eclipse Pioneer Division of Bendix Aviation Corporation confirms its aviation origin, as that division produced precision flight instruments for military and commercial aircraft, especially around the mid-20th century. I found this 9-inch metal device among my grandma's things. It takes 2 C batteries, vibrates when switched on, and has Japan stamped on both ends. There's no visible wiring, so the metal must be conducting the current. Any idea what this could be? What you found is actually part of a vintage vibrating back massager, sometimes referred to as a backo scratcher, which was popular during the 1960s. These devices were designed to help people relieve tension or scratch hard-to-reach spots on their backs without assistance. The vibrations were powered by C-size batteries, and the body of the device often acted as part of the electrical circuit, hence the lack of visible wiring. The Japan marking on both ends is typical of mass-produced personal care gadgets from that era, as Japan was a major exporter of affordable consumer electronics and novelty items throughout the mid-20th century. Though it may look mysterious now, this quirky little massager was once a common household item, especially among older adults seeking simple home remedies for back stiffness or discomfort. I found this small branded utensil at an elderly relative's home. It has the Borden logo with Elsie the cow and says copyright TBC, but no year and no clear use. It's not broken, just oddly shaped. Any idea what it was made for? What you found is a telephone dialer, a handy little tool designed for use with rotary phones. These devices became popular in the mid-20th century, particularly after the widespread introduction of long-distance direct dialing, which required users to manually enter full area codes and 7-digit numbers. Instead of using a fingertip to turn the dial, a process that could be repetitive and even uncomfortable, the user would place the rounded end of the dialer into the appropriate number slot and rotate the dial. Branded dialers like the one you found, featuring promotional logos such as Borden's Elsie the cow, were often given away as marketing items by companies. They combined practicality with subtle advertising, making them common household objects in the 1950s and 1960s. While digging in my grandfather's backyard in Argentina, I came across a heavy bronze and lead object weighing about 4.5 pounds. It has a numbered scale around the edge but no moving parts. Could this be from an old safe or something else entirely? What you've uncovered is a World War II-era German artillery fuse, a component once used to trigger the detonation of artillery shells. These fuses were designed with multiple settings, allowing them to explode either on direct impact or after a brief delay, depending on the tactical need. Made from heavy materials like bronze and lead, they were built to endure the intense forces of firing and flight. The presence of such an object in Argentina is not entirely surprising. After the war, many former members of the Nazi regime fled to South America, particularly Argentina, where numerous German military artifacts and personal belongings have surfaced over the decades. It's very likely that this fuse found its way there through one of those migration routes, making it not only a relic of wartime technology, but also a silent witness to a complex chapter of post-war history. I came across this strange item in a house filled with old maritime gear. It has a rotating pad eye on the back, and a propeller-like piece with angled blades. Any idea what it was used for? What you found is a taffrail log, also known as a patent log, an early maritime instrument used to measure the speed and distance traveled by a ship. Dating back to the 18th century, these devices function much like a nautical odometer. The propeller-like component called the rotator or spinner would be towed behind the vessel on a long line. As the ship moved forward, the spinner turned in the water, and those rotations were mechanically translated into speed readings via a dial mounted on the stern, or taffrail, of the ship. The device allowed sailors to track how far they had traveled through the water. Later, navigators would adjust the data for tides and currents to estimate their actual progress over land. I found this small sealed metal can while cleaning out a basement. It rattles when shaken, but there are no markings or dates, and it won't open, even though someone clearly tried. What could be inside? What you found initially looked like it might have come from a child's toy kitchen. Several people remembered playing with similar cans decorated with old brand labels in their grandparents' homes. However, after closer inspection and some online sleuthing, one person suggested it might actually be a vintage lighter. These were often disguised in everyday-looking objects and sometimes sealed tightly to preserve their fuel inside. At first, the can wouldn't budge. Twisting and pulling didn't help. But after some persistence, the owner managed to open it. Inside was, in fact, a lighter dating back to the 1940s. These novelty lighters were common in that era and often designed to resemble mundane items, making them great conversation pieces. I found this 12-centimeter stainless steel tool in a small leather suitcase that looks medical. When you press the red top, the pincers open. The old card it came with has 02406CHR printed on it. Could this be part of a medical kit? What you found is a vintage olive or pickle grabber, a clever little kitchen tool designed to make fishing items out of jars much easier. When you press the red top, the pincers at the bottom open, allowing you to reach into a jar and grab an olive or pickle without using your fingers or tipping the container. Once you release the top, the pincers close and hold the item securely. These tools were especially popular in mid-century households and often came with a small hook so they could hang off the rim of a jar or serving dish, though it looks like that part may be missing from yours. While it may resemble a medical instrument at first glance, its purpose is purely culinary. I found this metal object while metal detecting in a Minnesota park, where other 1860s artifacts have turned up. My uncle thinks it might be related to World War I toy soldiers, but I'm not so sure. Any ideas what it could be? What you found is a mold for casting lead toy soldiers, a once popular hobby especially among children and hobbyists from the early 1900s through the 1960s. These molds were part of home kits that allowed users to melt down sticks of lead alloy and pour the molten metal into detailed molds, creating miniature soldiers. After cooling, the figures would be filed smooth and painted, often with lead-based paints, adding another layer of risk. At the time, this activity was considered harmless fun, even though it involved handling molten metal and toxic materials in home kitchens. Many people who grew up in that era recall it fondly as a rite of passage, despite the obvious safety concerns by today's standards. I found this 1950s tool at an estate sale. It has a wooden handle and several round metal parts, one of which looks like a sharp-edged cutting wheel, almost like a glass cutter. Someone said it might be a can opener, but the larger wheels seem rusted in place. There are no markings anywhere. Any idea what it really is? This tool is a combination knife sharpener and glass cutter, likely made in the 1940s. It was designed as a multi-purpose device for the household, with small rotating discs for sharpening blades and a sharp-edged wheel for scoring glass. To sharpen a knife, you'd place the blade flat and draw the tool across it at a 45-degree angle several times. If the sharpening discs wore down, you could rotate them slightly using pliers to expose a fresh edge, extending the tool's life without needing replacements. Though simple in design, tools like this were practical and popular in mid-century kitchens and workshops, valued for their durability and versatility. I found these glass-like objects scattered along a rocky beach in the Scottish Isles. Some are clear, others black, and a few have evenly spaced lines around them. They feel like sea glass, and some are nearly as thick as wooden dowels. Any idea what they could be? What you found are carbon rods from old batteries, most likely from larger zinc carbon types that were once common in flashlights and other household devices. These rods formed the central core of the battery and conducted electrical current. Over time, when discarded or lost at sea, the outer casing of the battery corrodes or breaks apart, leaving the carbon rods to drift and eventually wash up on shore. The smooth, glass-like texture and worn appearance you described are the result of prolonged exposure to salt water and wave action, similar to how sea glass forms. The lines or grooves around some of the pieces may have come from the original battery mold, or from pressure inside the casing. It's not uncommon to find these along rocky beaches where currents tend to deposit heavier debris. My parents' neighbors have a device mounted on a dolly that blasts a deafening high-pitched alarm twice a day at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., aimed directly into their yard. It sounds like a power tool at first, but it's way too loud. Some thought it was to scare birds, but it seems oddly targeted. It has a manual switch. What on earth is this thing? What you've described is most likely a version of the mosquito alarm, a device developed to deter unwanted presence, and originally aimed at teenagers loitering outside shops or public buildings. It emits a high-frequency buzzing sound that can be deeply irritating but not harmful. The standard frequency is around 17.4 kHz, which is typically only heard by younger people under the age of 25. Adults often can't hear it at all, which made it an effective but controversial solution when it was introduced in the United Kingdom in 2005. Newer versions of the device may also operate at lower frequencies, such as 8 kHz, which are audible to a broader age range and even to animals. Some models are used to deter dogs, birds, or other wildlife from entering gardens or fields, though their directional setup can also make them an effective, if passive-aggressive tool in neighbor disputes. The fact that this one is manually operated and aimed directly into your parents' yard suggests it's not for pest control, but more likely being used as a targeted nuisance. I found a bag with 7 unusual screws at my father's house. Each has a different geometric shape on the head. No one knows where they came from, and with so many step-family visitors over the years, it's a mystery. Any idea what they're for? The objects you found are interchangeable tips for a wood-burning tool, used in the art of pyrography. Each tip features a different geometric shape because it's designed to create a specific pattern, line, or texture when heated and pressed against wood. Some tips are made for shading, others for fine lines or decorative stamps, and together they allow the artist to build detailed and textured designs on wooden surfaces. These tips screw into the end of an electric wood-burning pen, which heats them to the point where they can scorch the surface of the wood in controlled patterns.